Our prop special on CBS Sports HQ presented by Verbo. What a season for Cooper Kupp. The most fantasy points by a wide receiver in a single season. Over 400. Jerry Rice was the only guy to go over 400 before this season, and Kupp blew him away. 439.5 fantasy points. Let's get our fantasy insiders in here. Jamey, Eisenberg, and Dave Richard joining me. Chris Hassel from Los Angeles. Jamey, we were just talking with Robert Woods, obviously not going to play in the Super Bowl, but has been a part of the game planning, and he said, don't be surprised if we see some Rams wide receivers getting some carries in this game.
That would be fun, and that would certainly lead into what the prop we're going to talk about here for Cooper Kupp. Love the setup for him, obviously, to have a big game catching the ball because that's what he's done all season long. And actually, the last time these two teams met in 2019, he had 7 catches for 220 yards and a touchdown, actually his best receiving yardage game ever. But let's play a prop here with him with his rushing, like you said about what Robert Wood said in terms of the Rams receivers carrying the ball. All he needs to do is get 1 yard. That's it, just 1 little yard, Chris, and then we get to cash this one in a big, big way at plus 250. So to go over a half yard, we get plus 250 on this. He has at least 3 carries, 1 carry each of his last 6, three times in each of his last 6 games. So he's getting opportunities, whether it's a pass behind the line of scrimmage or they're putting the ball in his hands. They're giving him the chance to cash this prop, and I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to cash in a big way. So anything Cooper Kupp related, you should be playing in the Super Bowl this week.
I agree, and I love the idea of him catching a pass behind the line of scrimmage, and then he gets a yard. That means that you win on that prop. I like Odell Beckham under 5.5 receptions at minus 130. And it sounds a little crazy because he's had at least 6 catches each of his last 2 games. A lot of people are going to say that he's really been coming into his own. He's got his big role in this LA offense. But I'm telling you that his target rate drops. Pete Prisco mentioned it before the break. I'm expecting the Cincinnati Bengals to play a lot of heavy zone defense. His target rate drops below that 20% threshold against zone coverage, which means Stafford would have to throw 30 passes just for Beckham on average to get 6 targets, much less 6 catches. His catch rate is around 60%. I think he's going to need around 9 targets in this game. I don't think he gets there. I think Beckham ends up with 4 or 5 grabs.
All right, those are your top wide receiver props for the Rams. Dave, right back to you on the Bengals. What do you like for Cincinnati's wide receivers?
There is hype going on for T. Higgins right now, and I am fully on board with all of it. Higgins over 5.5 receptions. The line, the odds have actually moved to minus 115. So if you've got this one and you can get it at better than 115, you should absolutely take it. Here's another receiver, at least 6 catches each of his last 2 games. But his catch rate versus zone coverage, not like Odell Beckham, it's through the roof. And I think you're going to see him come through and catch a lot of passes. He's going to have great single coverage against Darius Williams. Darius Williams, because we're thinking that Jalen Ramsey, Jamar Chase, that's the marquee matchup, right? Darius Williams is 5'9". T. Higgins is 6'4". And when they're mano-a-mano, I know Joe Burrow will throw to him. He will come through with lots of receptions.
Yeah, I don't care who's covering T. Higgins in the Super Bowl. He's going to have a big day. He's going to go over that number. He's also going to go over his receiving yardage number of 67.5 yards. Love the setup for him in this one. He's been over this number 6 of his last 9 games, so the track record's there. 2 in a row in the playoffs already. Probably going to see a setup where the Bengals are chasing points, as we've seen from them in the playoffs so far this season, and I think we'll see another similar setup of Joe Burrow leaning on T. Higgins. He's going to lean on Jamar Chase as well. There's no going away from these 2 guys because they're both going to be special. But don't forget about T. Higgins. As much hype as Jamar Chase is getting, T. Higgins is still going to be a significant factor. He's going to go over his receptions. He's going to go over his receiving yards. He may be the best receiver in this game if the Bengals have their way and end up winning this game and they can control Cooper Kupp a little bit. That's probably a little bit of a blasphemous thing to say, but if the Bengals win this game and T. Higgins has a big part in it, don't be surprised if he has a huge numbers-wise in terms of his catches and his yards.
All right, maybe look at him for potential Super Bowl MVP, too. If that's the case, you're going to get great value on him. Jamey, you're kind of zigging when a lot of other people, well, maybe you're zagging when other people are zigging, vice versa. But you went with your top Rams wide receiver prop was Cooper Kupp over a half rushing yard, and you're doing the same thing Joe Burrow. It's not pass attempts, pass completions, pass yards, anything like that. You're going with rush attempts here.
Yeah, I think we'll see a situation where he uses his legs a little bit, escaping pressure. We know this offensive line at times in the playoffs certainly has had their issues. We can go back to the game against the Titans. But he's been over this number 3 of his last 6 games. And so, I think he'll be able to run a little bit. I think that's an underutilized part of his game, as he's worked his way back from the ACL. So going over 2.5 rush attempts, I think, is something that will definitely come into play. And let's not rule out if the Bengals win this game, you get those kneel downs as well. So I like the setup for Joe Burrow. I do think the Rams win, but if Burrow's in that spot to get that victory formation, those count as rush attempts. So I think he does go over this, though, during the course of the game as he's running around, escaping the pocket, escaping the pressure, escaping Aaron Donald. Joe Burrow does cash on this prop with the over 2.5 rush attempts.
But let's be honest here. Joe Burrow's going to have to throw a lot in this game. And I like the over on his passing yards. It's 273.5. This guy's giving you at least 300 yards in 5 of his past 8 games. He's going to see a lot of zone coverage against the Rams. The Rams played the second most zone coverage of any defense during the regular season, and they were over 80% in zone coverage just in the playoffs alone. So he knows what he's going to get. And they specifically play cover 3 zone. Pete knows all about that. Burrow on the season has averaged 9 yards per pass attempt against cover 3. So if he attempts 30 passes, which I think we could all agree is a pretty big lock here, that's 270 yards. He's just a little bit more than that to get over this prop. I think this is a slam dunk. He's going to get you 275 plus.
All right, those are your top Joe Burrow props. How about over to the other side, Jamey? What's your favorite Matthew Stafford prop?
Well, I got 2. I'll save one for later, but the first one we'll talk about here is he's going to be very successful throwing the ball against his Bengals defense. He's been on fire in the playoffs, averaging over 300 yards passing per game in the 3 games. But I think you'll see him connect with his receivers quite a bit in this game because of how creative Sean McVay is, how open Cooper Kupp will be, how great Odell Beckham has played in the last 2 games. So I'm taking the over on his 24.5 completions here. When you look at, he's done this each of the last 2 games. He's been over this number 3 of his last 5 games. So he's been in a nice rhythm. So far, he's been great at home, and we know this is a home game for him. So Stafford, I think anything that you look at with the overs here, I'm in love with Matthew Stafford in this game. I think Will Brinson's going to get his opportunity to boast a little bit when he wins this game and ends up taking the opportunity to put himself a little bit further in the Hall of Fame conversation. But Stafford over the 24.5 completions, I think, is an easy one to play this week.
So we're going to differ a little bit on this one. Not that I disagree with that prop, and I'll get to Jamey's prop in a second, but I like the under on the yardage. It's 281.5. and it's falling. If you can get it above 281.5, take the under on it if you can. I've seen it fall as far as 279.5. Again, I'm going to reference that zone coverage, that heavy zone coverage defense that the Cincinnati Bengals tend to play. They did it against Mahomes in the second half, and they were masterful at it. Stafford's lowest quarterback ratings and worst pass efficiency is against that cover 3, cover 4, cover 6 defense that the Bengals are going to play a lot of. Now, here's the thing. If you disagree with that and you think Stafford's going to have a big game, take Jamey's over prop of 24.5. It's even money, just as Jamey told you. Every time in his last 3 times that Stafford's thrown for over 300 yards, those completions have been there for him.
I'm surprised Jamey didn't take any INT props for either one of the quarterbacks, though he did say that one prop for Matthew Stafford he's saving for his top prop of the Super Bowl, so maybe that's it. Let's move to the running backs. Jamey, Cam Akers, what's your favorite Rams running back prop? Going with Akers, who is taking the load for the Rams in the postseason.
He has, but we saw in the game against the 49ers, he didn't exactly do it to the same level he had in the 2 previous games. And now he's dealing with a shoulder injury. And this number is dropping, I think, because people are playing the opportunity of him, dealing with this injury and also the potential of Darrell Henderson coming back. So when I sent the notes in, it was at 16.5 rush attempts. Now it's down to 15.5, and I think that's still a number worth playing because you heard Sean McVay say on Wednesday that we're going to go out with a hot hand approach if Henderson does play as expected coming back from that knee injury. Again, Akers dealing with that shoulder injury, was limited in practice on Wednesday. We'll see what his practice report is Thursday and Friday going into the game. Sony Michel obviously is going to have a role in this game as well, but I think this is going to be a game where Matthew Stafford's throwing quite a bit. They will run. They will certainly run in the second half when they're playing with the lead, but we just don't know if it's going to be completely Cam Akers like we saw in that game against Tampa Bay, for example, in the divisional round. So taking the under on his rush attempts, I think, is an easy play here based on what we've seen from Akers and the fact that he's less than 100%.
And we haven't seen player props come out on the other Rams running backs, Sony Michel, Darrell Henderson. So write this one in pencil for me. I'll take the over on his receiving yards. It's 15.5. It's not that much, and it's minus 110. You like tendencies. You like how offenses tend to play against a specific type of defense. Maybe you've heard me talk about the Bengals and how they're going to play a lot of zone coverage. We've seen the Rams on the season throw to their running backs 70 times, 70 targets to their running backs against zone coverage, Only 12 times versus man. It makes sense. If it's zone coverage, that means the Bengals are trying to defend the big, deep middle of the field. They don't want to allow a big play, and it just means that Matthew Stafford has to check down a little bit. If Akers catches 2 passes, he should be able to get you at least 16 yards.
All right, let's go to Bengals running backs. That's Joe Mixon. And Dave, talking with a lot of our experts here, a lot of them are on Joe Mixon unders, specifically rushing yard unders. They just don't think he's going to be able to run the football. You like an over, but not for rushing yards. What is it?
It's the receiving yards, over 26.5 receiving yards. He's been over this in 5 straight games. The Rams allowed 50 receiving yards to each of the last 2 running backs that they faced, and that's really the long and the short of it. I agree with the experts that say that Joe Mixon isn't going to be successful running the football. He's really going to need 1 or 2 long plays for that rushing prop to go over, but he's been much more involved in the Bengals passing game over the last month plus. I expect that to continue.
Twice since November, he's been over 58 rushing yards. Pete Prisco's worked 40 hours more times since November than Joe Mixon's gone over that number. So he did it in the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, obviously with the 88 rushing yards. But what you've seen from this Rams defense is certainly in the playoffs, they've clamped down against all opposing running backs that they face. Leonard Fournette with a high of 51. So I think Mixon's going to be in trouble running the ball. I do think he's going to be involved in the passing game. We've seen that from him pretty consistently. We'll also see what kind of role Samaje Perine has in the passing game. But I think this is definitely a game you want to play the under on Joe Mixon's rushing, and that's at 62.5. I think he's going to still be under that as well. Probably look for him in the mid-50s as he struggles to go against Aaron Donald and company for that Rams front.
All right, now to our top prop for Super Bowl 56. Jamey, is this where you bring out your quarterback interception numbers?
No, I'm gonna keep that one for next season, Chris. You know, we had a good run with that one, but usually I only play that when it's juice in our favor. I'm gonna go with Matthew Stafford here with his rushing attempts as well. Like we talked about with Joe Burrow, you're gonna get the opportunity if the Rams win this game for some kneel downs. I think that's gonna be the case. But you're also going to see Stafford. He's been 4 or more rushing attempts each of the 3 postseason games so far. And so he's been using his legs. He has 2 rushing touchdowns. Didn't do it in the NFC Championship game, but did it against the Cardinals, did it against the Buccaneers. I think he'll be able to run against the Bengals defense as well because he's just been in such a good rhythm right now. So taking the over on this one, I think he'll be in that 4 to 5 rush attempt range again. And again, if they are kneeling down at the end of the game, I think Stafford's going to get over this as well. So over 2.5, it's a number that's juiced in our favor as well. But like the setup for Stafford with his rush attempts in the Super Bowl.
Jamey's player prop is plus 100. Mine is plus 1,000. Let's win some money on the Super Bowl with this 3-pronged approach that Joe Burrow will have the most passing yards, Cooper Kupp will have the most receiving yards, and Cam Akers, the guy that we're not sure is going to play a ton for the Rams, but I think he will, he's going to lead the game in rushing yards. If those 3 things happen, you get 10 to 1 on your money. Book it. It's going down.
Love it. Love the value there. And Jamey, I know you don't like the juice for the quarterback interceptions, but if you parlay both quarterbacks to throw a pick, it's plus 210. Do you like that?
Oh, yeah, then we'll go that route as well. I heard you guys talking about this with Stafford. I do think he'll be a little bit aggressive, does have the 1 interception in the playoffs so far. Burrow has a couple of interceptions as well. So, yes, I do think both guys will get a little turnover prone, but usually I play that one when it's for the individual quarterback going over when it's juiced in our favor. But, yeah, if you want to parlay it with both those guys, absolutely go that route for sure.
All right, let's DFS it up here. Dave, give us your lineup.
I'm going FanDuel for my lineup, and the team that I really want to be a part of for my FanDuel lineup is Cincinnati because I think they're going to throw a lot. I talked about how much I like T. Higgins. I want that Burrow to Higgins stack, and I put Tyler Boyd in there for cheap, and I'm banking on Tyler Higbee not playing, and when I saw that, I had to put Kendall Blanton in my lineup. Put all that with Cooper Kupp, and I've got a lot of receivers loaded up in my lineup with Joe Burrow putting up huge numbers through the air.
I'll go the other way with the Rams on DraftKings. Love the setup for Stafford. Like I said, he's been averaging over 300 yards in the playoffs at home so far this season, 10 games at home. Again, home game for the Rams, essentially. 288.8 passing yards per game in that building. So he's going to have success once again. 26 touchdowns on the season. As you see, 2 touchdowns per game in the playoffs so far. So Stafford in the captain spot and stacking in with Cooper Kupp and Beckham. Like I said, Beckham's going to have a big game. He's faced the Bengals twice during his time, his last 2 times, with the Browns, over 74 yards in both those 2 games, a touchdown in each of those 2 games. So he's somewhat familiar with facing the Bengals and what they'll throw at him. I think it'll be a big game for Beckham, obviously for Kupp. You have to play T. Higgins. He's the cheapest of the top 4 receivers, looking at Kupp and Beckham and obviously Jamar Chase. he has the chance once again, as we said earlier, for a big game. So love the setup for him. And then Samaje Perine, we see him take over as kind of the third down back in tandem with Joe Mixon in that role, coming off a big game last week, 3 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown against the Chiefs 2 weeks ago in the AFC Championship game. So a good cheap option, as well as going with the kicker there for the Rams. So like the setup for the Rams if you're going to stack them on DraftKings.
All right, good to talk with our fantasy guys, Jamey Eisenberg and Dave Richard, and you can hear much more from them and Heath Cummings and Adam Azer and others on the Fantasy Football Today podcast. Download and follow. They're going to have much more on DFS for the game and props as well as we lead up to Super Bowl 56.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.